Thank you everyone, and this is extraordinary meeting of the council to be held on Wednesday 29th January 2025. So to start off, on the 28th of February is the Mayor's Ball, and Fiona, Mayor Secretary, has written to most of you already. Could you please reply if you can attend the Mayor's Ball? So, would we start with the agenda? Any apologies? Nadeem?
Yeah, just apologies from councillors Ash Sutcliffe, Neil Rushworth and Tom Hunt.
Thank you. Next is declaration of interest. Any? No. Next is the number 3, council to vote on removal of the leader of the council, Councillor Ashid Mahmood, from office. In accordance with the part 4 of the Constitution, paragraph 3.1, calling extraordinary meeting, the Chief Executive may call an extraordinary meeting of the council. In addition, those listed below may request the Chief Executive to call council meetings in addition to ordinary meetings. Next is number 1, the council by resolution, the mayor, the leader, the monitoring officer, any 8 members of the council, if they have signed requisition presented to the mayor and he or she has refused to call a meeting or has refused to call a meeting within 7 days of the presentation of the requisition. In accordance with sub-paragraph 2 above, the mayor has been informed that the following 8 members have signed a requisition represented to the mayor in accordance with sub-paragraph 4 above, the signatures being councillors C. Church, D. Hartley, S. Land, D. Lord, B. Newman, M. Strickland, D. Wick, T. Wick. The mayor has requested the Chief Executive to call this extraordinary meeting and the businesses to be transacted at the meeting. It has outlined below. Motion to be moved in accordance with the part 4 of the Constitution, paragraph 13.1, to be moved by Councillor D. Wick and second by Councillor D. Hartley. Council resolved to remove the leader of the council, Councillor Ashid Mahmood, from office. To select a leader of the council, if following the vote on item 3 above, the leader of the council, Councillor Ashid Mahmood, is removed from office, then in accordance with part 2, articles of the Constitution, Article 6, leader of the council must elect a new leader of the council. After A, at the meeting, the leader is moved from office. B, a subsequent meeting. So, could I ask Councillor Wick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no pleasure whatsoever in proposing that Council resolve to move the leader of the Councillor Ashid Mahmood from office. My group is very proud of the impact that we've made during the current administration. At the outset, we set out a series of priorities for the shared administration, which was accepted at first by the then Labour group and by the independent group subsequently. And we can measure our success against these proposals. We have kept our 3 sports centres open, carrying out essential repairs and investing in sustainable energy systems. We've created a new local plan with reduced housing development. We've kept decision making in the hands of local people. We're taking action on long-term empty properties and homelessness. We've rescued the renewal of the Colne Market Hall and also the underfunded Colne Municipal Hall refurbishment. We've made some progress in getting proper youth services across Pendle. We've strengthened this council's response to the climate crisis. We have maintained front-line services. We've transformed this council's openness with the live stream meetings which were abolished by the previous administration. We've established Gib Hill as a nature reserve. We are renewing our town centres, accessibility in Earby, Barnoldswick and Briarfield. And we've begun the feasibility study into phase 3 of flood alleviation work in Earby. We sacked the licence to print money company that fleeced Pendle residents with their fleeced Pendle residents for littering, but failed to improve cleanliness. However, last March, our demand for improved taxi safety measures was achieved, with wide-ranging proposals agreed at Pendle's council meeting that month. The decision at the last council meeting by the independent group and several Conservatives to overturn taxi safety checks puts people's lives at risk. This is a move that undermines the foundations of the shared service agreement that our two groups have. We've worked well together and we have amicable relations with colleagues in the independent group as we have with members and officers across the council. But scrapping those taxi safety measures is a red line that we will not pass. I have no animosity with Councillor Mahmood, and I very much regret the way in which the terms of this resolution is put, but apparently that's the legal niceties. If there had been an agreement to rescind that motion, or that the amendment that became a motion at the December meeting, we would have been prepared to withdraw this no confidence vote. We would, Mr Mayor, preferred for Councillor Mahmood to withdraw gracefully, and we look to appoint a new leader. In due course, if this no confidence vote is passed, we will be putting forward a proposal that hopefully would include representatives from all groups on this council sharing in administration that would encompass the breadth of the political diversity, the breadth of the geographical diversity that we have here in Pendle. Mr Mayor, as I say, I have no pleasure in moving this, but I think in the interest of the safety of people in Pendle, a line has been drawn and we must ensure that it is kept. I move.
Mr Hartley.
Thank you, Council. Mr Mayor, I'd like to second Councillor David Wick's proposals. When I was voted on this time, and I'm very new to this, it was done as a vote of trust from the people of my town and the surrounding areas. They trusted me to take their views to you and to make their voice heard. Since the last meeting of the council, I've stopped many people in the town and explained what happened at the meeting with the safety with the app, with the council, on an agreement that was agreed and has been reneged on. And not one person has turned around and said, we don't want a safety app, we want safety in our taxis. We want the council to stand up and say that we want everybody who gets in every taxi to be 100% safe, without any doubt at all. And they do a great job. Every taxi driver here, and I know there's some there, they do a great job. So hats off to you guys up there. We just want to make sure that your public, the general public, is safe when they get in your taxi. And I know ex-councillor Kieran McCready has resigned over this. And to quote himself on his page, his personal relationships were more important than public safety. And I think this is what we've got to look at today. I know that we all tend to vote in groups, but we haven't. We were voted on as trusts, and you've got to say to yourself that when it comes to vote, would your vote echo the votes of the people in your areas? Would they want everybody to get safely into a taxi, even if you're just adopting one single app? So I have nothing else to say. You know, this is all about not about yourself, but about the taxi safety and the app, and making sure that 1% all our people in Pendle are safe.
Councillor Iqbal.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, let's not beat about the bush. The meeting isn't about taxi licence. The meeting, as the motion has set out, is about removing Councillor Ash Chadwick as leader of the council. That's what the agenda says. There's nothing in terms of the agenda, in terms of talking about taxis. But let me just start off by saying I am disappointed in Councillor David Grip as a senior politician on this council over a number of decades, moving this water law contest, because I generally believe that since 2015, our group and his group have worked very well together for the people of Pendle. And I think all councillors in this room try their best in terms of working for the people of Pendle. Clearly we come from different priorities and we have our arguments, we have our differences, but we never go to the extreme of denying democratic decision making. And I think that's what's happened here, that Councillor Ash Chadwick has been forced into a corner and been told or indicated that unless the decision is rescinded, which wasn't his decision, it was a council's decision, a cross-party decision by at least 3 political groups on this part of the council. We made that decision last month, or the month before, sorry. But let me just refresh councillors' memories what the motion that agreed was. It said, request the Taxi Licensing Committee to enter into meaningful dialogue with the Hackney and private hire representatives to address safety of vehicles serving the people of Pendle, and that the implementation of any app or substitute is suspended. Suspended, Mr Mayor, not cancelled, until the outcome of meaningful dialogue with the trade was known. And the reason that that amendment was carried is because there were sensible people across the chamber who last month looked at what was happening, and I pointed out the figures. I'll reiterate them again for the people that were not being here, that 30 out of 874 drivers have signed up to the app. 30 out of 874. If you go back to the March meeting that Councillor David Grip has alluded to, what that means is that those drivers, those 844 drivers that haven't, they get 8 penalty points on their taxi licences, and if they still don't do it, they hold before the committee. Now, Councillor Brian Newman's chairman of the Taxi Licensing Committee. If he can share with us tonight how he's going to deal with 844 taxi drivers in one Taxi Licensing Committee, then he must be a world record for this taxi committee to have dealt with so many people. The fact is the app is not working, it's not workable. I believe in taxi safety, but the first person that's going to die in any accident, Councillor Hartley, is a taxi driver. Forget the passengers for a second. The first person that drives that car in the morning is a taxi driver. Now, if the taxi trade is saying they're not prepared to work with the app, then my motion at the last meeting was simply to enter into meaningful dialogue, which meant, and I was prepared to work with the chairman, that said to the trade, and we did this a number of years ago, Councillor Butterworth's not here, but Councillor Brian Newman and Councillor Dorothy Lord have served on taxi licensing. What happened a few years ago when there was an issue around touting, we brought in a policy that if you were caught fatalities the first time, you were banned from driving for 4 weeks. Only 6 drivers were banned for 4 weeks, and 6 years later, not a single driver has been brought before the committee for touting. That's what strong measures are about, not playing politics and trying to bring down the leader of the council, who had no decision making in terms of the motion last month. And I think the way that the debate has descended already, Mr Mayor, is wrong. We need to be pragmatic as politicians and look to address the solution, not simply use the means that are available to us to remove the leader of the council. As Councillor Whip has alluded, there have been a number of good things that have happened, and I'm proud of those things under Councillor Ashton Mahmood's leadership and Councillor David Whip's leadership as deputy. Things have worked well. Why jeopardise everything tonight on something that's not even been addressed yet? There's a taxi licensing meeting on the 13th of February, I understand, where this topic will be debated. The councillors there have the opportunity to work with the trade. If we don't work with the trade, how are we going to deal with 844 taxi drivers? It's not the remiss of Councillor Ashton Mahmood, Councillor David Whip or Councillor Dean Mohammed as the 3 group leaders, or Councillor Yasser Iqbal as the 4th group leader to deal with those 844. Let's be pragmatic, progressive and forward-thinking and deal with the issue that's at hand and not play politics by removing Councillor Ashton Mahmood. And I would urge all councillors across the chamber to reject the motion that's been put down.
Anyone else? Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we all recall when the shared agreement was first set up that some of my colleagues described it as a coalition of chaos, and Councillor Whip was first to say, no, it's not a coalition, it is a shared arrangement. And I note that, and perhaps with hindsight I should have picked up on this earlier, he didn't refute the chaos part of the coalition of chaos. And here we are today discussing a motion which is, as Councillor Iqbal pointed out, seems to be purely political. Councillor Whip made a long electioneering speech talking about a lot of successes, which were not successes so much, mostly of the Liberal Democrats, but of all councillors working together. And then, extraordinarily, we had an attempt to set the scene, to make this vote about taxi safety. Indeed, the wording that was used was that taxi safety checks were being overturned. No councillor in this chamber would ever vote to overturn taxi safety checks. Councillors were referring to an app that has never been put into use. We can't be merely suspended, as others have said. We call for meaningful dialogue. We suspended a decision on the app for 6 months. No taxi safety checks were overturned, and nobody would ever propose that. So what we really have here today is a piece of blatant electioneering, a piece of political theatre. And Councillor Whip, unfortunately, has proven himself to be the doyen of disorder, the master of mayhem, because we have an attack on the leader, we have an attempt to sow chaos in Pendle, and in fact, what most of us want to do, those of us who are responsible, is we want to work together across parties, we want to work with each other in the interests of the people of Pendle. And that's exactly what we should be doing, not sat here tonight indulging Councillor Whip in his theatre.
Councillor Nadeem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At a time when what we really need as a council is certainty, here we are discussing something which will cause absolute chaos and uncertainty. And that's what this motion is seeking to do. We heard earlier on a list of issues or policies which the shared administration have worked on, and other councils have as well. And what we really heard is a political broadcast, electioneering, I would say. At a time when we've got some really significant issues ongoing with this council, I'm not going to discuss the specifics about the taxi licensing issue and what happened before, but I think this is bigger than that even. Because we've got the discussion around devolution ongoing. We've got some really important decisions to be made around that, and there's lots of work to be done. We've got the budget meeting only, 4 weeks away? That's the sort of thing we should be working on. How are we going to balance the books at this council? The damning audit report, which was discussed last night at the Accounts and Audit Committee, that's the sort of things that this council should be discussing, rather than wasting everybody's time here this evening, officers' time, and members, and being here discussing something which I have absolutely no idea what the purpose is and what it's going to achieve. And then there's a cost element to this council. It's costing over £1,000 just for this meeting this evening to set up. And I don't know what the, like I said, I don't know what the motion is seeking to do. I'm not saying remove the leader. If this council decides to remove the leader, where do we go from there as an administration? There's no overall majority. I cannot see us agreeing on selecting somebody else. No one's got the majority. No one's going to be supporting, let's be honest about it. If Councillor Wick decides to put his name forward, our group certainly won't be supporting, neither will the independents. If I put my name forward, I'm not going to have a majority, the independents will vote against me, so will the Lib Dems. So I think the only sensible way forward is for the leader as to actually remain as leader, and all groups to work together to address the real serious issues this council is facing. And that's what our approach should be, not playing political games and removing the leader at this moment in time. Thank you.
Yasser Iqbal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a waste of time. We have to ask ourselves, Mr. Mayor, what on earth are we doing here? And before I launch into my points, can I agree with both Councillor Stone and Councillor Dean, who I think have been very sensible and pragmatic in the approach that they've taken and the points that they've made. This, I think, is one of the first speeches I'm going to make in this chamber since I've been a councillor, since 2013, 14, 15, I'm not sure when. 14, thank you. Where I'm going to disagree with Councillor Wick. I think I've disagreed with him on certain things, but we've never openly disagreed, and I think that's fine, that's politics. That's what's happening today. You are taking down the leader in which it was agreed between the Liberal Democrats and the Independent group. And as Councillor Ahmed said, what is there to be achieved? Because if Councillor Mahmood is removed as leader, what happens? Because as Councillor Nadeem rightly says, and this is not a discourtesy to him of course, we will not support him as leader. Not because it's Councillor Ahmed, it's because he's a Conservative. But that's fine, that's politics. We won't support Councillor Wick. Again, nothing personal, that's just politics. We might support Councillor Mahmood, and I think in fact we can say we will support Councillor Mahmood because he's an independent. If he was a leader of the Labour Party, then that might be a different Labour Party, then that might be a different thing. I think I've made that position very clear. If the motion fails today, Mr. Mayor, what will Councillor Wick do? He's not made that clear. Will you resign from the administration? It's a nod. Then, and that again leaves the council in disarray because then it might be minority administration. So ask, what is there to be achieved? It comes back to the points which have been made numerous times today, chaos. And it will be chaos. And maybe, I'm not sure if that is one of the intentions, I'm not sure, maybe Councillor Wick, when he stands up, he can tell us what the reason is. Because at the outset of his speech, he listed the achievements of this council, of this administration. And there's a number of things which I noted, which I won't go in. What it comes down to is, that before I do that, Councillor Whip said that if the motion is successful, then he will propose something which will include every member or every group of this council. I personally, we wouldn't join. That's the PTI group will not join the administration. Why? Because it will just make us, we will not be part of a group or an administration which includes, for example, the Conservatives or indeed the Liberal Democrats in this situation, because we have to look at what we have now. Is it working? We don't agree with everything that's happening, but actually I think it's working. Because we have to look at what's happening, what's coming in the future, which is the devolution deal. 2 or 3 years is what we have. And it will be chaos. And at a time when we need, as Councillor Ahmed said, certainty, this is creating uncertainty, instability, and issues which don't need to be brought before the council. Councillor Hartley said, when coming back to why we're here, which is the suspension of the taxi app. And as Councillor Iqbal highlighted, it is a suspension. It's not a scrapping of the app. Had it been a scrapping of the app, so I asked Councillor Hartley rhetorically, did you tell the people that you spoke to that we haven't scrapped the app? It's a suspension. The meeting is taking place in February. The pragmatic thing to have done is say, let's sit together in the February meeting, right, Mr. Mahmood, Councillor Iqbal, whoever it is, Councillor Newman, we're all happy with this. In the February meeting, we have now considered all options, and the taxi app is the only option we have. We are now going to put a motion against you, Mr. Leader, if you don't agree to this. This is, in my view, a very premature motion, which isn't going to achieve anything. And finally, Councillor McGladdy resigned. I'm not sure what the reasons were. He's highlighted reasons, whether people want to accept that one as a different thing. But you have to ask yourself, if he was here, they would have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr.
It was a very finely, but I've got a few seconds, Mr. Mayor. If it was a very finely balanced vote, if he was here, it probably wouldn't have been, the motion would have failed. Does he tell that to his constituents? It is hypocrisy, because why wasn't he here? I, Mr. Mayor, will not support this motion. I think Councillor Noor is doing a good job, and I think we should keep him as a leader.
Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we should get back to reality. This taxi app is something, we all talk about safety, fair comment. But the law states that every vehicle should be road level. And this is one way of making sure that they will be. Thank you.
Anyone? Any other speaker? Councillor Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can see the way that this is going. I'm rather shocked at the Conservatives, but given that a considerable proportion of the Conservative group at the meeting in December voted to backslide on the introduction of the app, I'm hardly surprised. Councillor McGladdery resigned over this issue. He gave a damning indictment of members of his group and their actions over this matter, and I understand that these have been reported not only to the monitoring officer but to the police. So let us not underplay the significance of that December decision, and let us not underplay the importance of safety for the people, the passengers, those people who are using taxis, including the drivers. This was a key part of the shared agreement that
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Whip's wrong there. There was nothing about taxis in our agreement.
Mr. Mayor, it was a key part of the original agreement. In March of last year, we achieved that, and we took it tick, and it wasn't included because we no longer needed to do it. Councillor Iqbal and the independent group at the meeting in December, with the connivance of the Conservatives,
Come on.
with the connivance of the Conservatives.
Thank you. Can you sit down, Councillor Nadeem, please? Councillor Wick.
To behave himself.
Mr Mayor, the independent group with the connivance of the Conservatives, the absence of the Conservatives allowed that regulation, that act, to be effectively scrapped. So that's where we are. Now, Mr Mayor, we have an agreement. That agreement includes a key safety issue. And it is just ridden roughshod over. So, Mr Mayor, our group very clearly at that meeting, and at the time with the support of one Conservative, called a special council meeting, which we are having this evening.
No, point of clarification, you didn't call for it.
Councillor.
Mr Mayor,
Not signed it.
Mr Mayor, the requisition was signed by one of the members of the Conservative group.
Mr Mayor.
Can you
Mr.
let
Mayor.
Councillor Wick finish
It's factually
it,
incorrect.
please?
Mr. Mayor, it's factually incorrect. He's withdrawn his name. He withdrew his name. It's out here.
Mr Mayor,
Can you sit down, Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
Nadeem?
Not being truthful.
Yes,
Mr
Councillor
Mayor,
Wick.
I am being absolutely truthful, Councillor. Absolutely. The requisition was signed by a member of the Conservative group who subsequently withdrew his name.
Exactly.
Now, Mr Mayor, that is the absolute truth, and I question and I ask all members of the council and the public, why was that signature withdrawn? I leave you to make your own minds up on that. Councillor Stone said, well, you know, you've had a coalition of chaos. Well, no, what you've had is a shared administration that's done some very good work.
Coalitions.
However, you've had a shared administration that's done good work, which cannot continue in the way that it has because you've driven a coach and horses through that very first agreement. Now, Councillor Brian Newman said, back to reality. This is clearly going to fall tonight, and fine, fair enough. We would have wished to have had a strong voice as a leader of this council in the negotiations over local government reorganisation. We would have wished to have a unified administration that would have genuinely represented all parts of Pendle rather than all the resources being sucked into the centre and the periphery taking the hit.
Thank you,
Mr
Councillor
Mayor, we've had several interruptions, so I'll talk you briefly. Mr Mayor, Councillor Yasser Iqbal said, will we resign as members of the administration if this no confidence vote fails? Yes, our resignations will be with the leader of the council at the end of this meeting. Mr Mayor, we do not relish that. We would wish that things were otherwise. It may still be that there are votes in this council chamber to prevent this administration carrying on, bringing a new administration, a reset for Pendle Council, a concentration on
Thank you
new
very much, Councillor
priorities
Wick. Time is up.
over
Thank
this
you.
next 3-year period before a new
Thank you very much, Councillor Wick.
Come on.
Right, next
Can I
now.
call for a name vote, Mr Mayor?
Okay, second. Have you got a second? Right, okay. Now we go for the vote. All those nay vote. Okay.
Councillors, for the avoidance of doubt, I think you all know the procedure, but I'll be reading each councillor's name out and you say appropriately whether you are for or against the motion that's before you. Councillor Adnan Mohammed.
Against.
Ahmad Faraz. Against. Ahmed Sajjad.
Against.
Ali Zafar.
Against.
Ahmed Mohammed.
Against.
Anwar Ruby.
Against.
Ashraf Naim.
Against.
Aslam Mohammed.
Against?
Church Chris. Coben Price David.
Abstain.
Coben Price Sarah.
Abstain.
Gallia David.
Abstain.
Hanif Mohammed.
Against.
Hartley David.
For.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Against.
Iqbal Yasser.
Against.
Kaleem Mohammed.
Against.
Land Susan.
For.
Lord Dorothy.
Abstain.
Mahmood Asjad.
Against.
Newman Brian.
For.
O'Connor Richard.
Abstain.
Salter Kevin.
Abstain.
Strickland Mick.
For.
Stone Martin.
Abstain.
Tennant Yvonne.
Against.
Whip David.
For.
Whip Tom.
For.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you missed me out.
My mistake. Ahmed.
Abstain.
Just bear with us.
Yes, 7. And 8 abstention.
Majority on the exec.
7-4. 14 against.
So there's 14 against, 7 in favour, 8 abstain. Not carried. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, and this meeting near enough cost nearly £2,000.